Getting pulled over can be frustrating or just nerve-wracking, especially if it's your first time.
But don't sweat it. It's easy to make mistakes like speeding, following your car too closely, or driving off a ramp like an action hero.
Sometimes you might get pulled over for something you didn't do wrong, like having your taillight burn out or happening to have a vehicle that matches the description of a stolen car.
Did you steal this car, son?
No.
You wouldn't lie to me now, would you?
No.
You just have to accept that sometime in your driving life, you're gonna get pulled over. And you need to be ready.
There's no need to worry. A lot of people think that if they get pulled over, they're going to be needlessly handcuffed or bullied by a police officer.
Whose car is this? It's my grandma's car. Whose car is it? My grandma's! I think he stole this car, everybody.
This is not going to happen.
The officer is just trying to do his job without getting killed. As long as you're respectful and use common sense, you have nothing to worry about. That being said, there are a few things you can do to make the whole process smoother for you and the officer.
So today, we give you 3 tips on how to handle getting pulled over. Number 1, prioritize safety. The most important thing is making sure that the experience is safe for both you and the officer. As soon as you see the flashing siren directly behind you, turn on your hazard lights. This lets other drivers know that you are the one being pulled over. Now that your hazards are on, it's time to find a place to park. Look for a safe spot, like a wide shoulder on the road or a parking lot. If there isn't one in sight, don't just keep driving for miles until you find one. Unless you like helicopters and large cameras. If there isn't an ideal place in sight fairly quickly, find an area off the road and use your turn signal to indicate that you're pulling over. Just make sure the spot is wide enough for you and the police officer to park safely. Also, it's best not to pull over into a ditch or off a bridge. While you're pulling over, don't come to an abrupt stop and brake check the officer. Now that you're safely pulled over, pull yourself together and make sure that you're prepared. Remember, officers deal with life-threatening situations on a daily basis. There's a few things that you can do to indicate that you are not one of those situations. First things first, turn off the ignition. This way the officer knows that there's no danger of you trying to drive away suddenly. If it's dark outside, turn on the lights in your car to make sure that the officer knows that you have nothing to hide. Next, stay in your car and slowly roll down the driver's side window. This is not the time to get out and greet the officer or stretch your legs. It will make the officer uncomfortable on many levels.
Yeah, I'm gonna need some backup. Looks like we got a runner.
Not only should you stay in your car, it's best to keep your hands on the steering wheel. A lot of movement makes an officer nervous because he doesn't know what you might be reaching for. Maybe it's just a banana, or maybe it's a gun, or maybe it's a gun shaped like a banana. So it's good practice to keep your hands visible until instructed to do otherwise. Make all your movements slow and deliberate. This way the officer will be at ease and know that you are not one of those sketchy situations.
Number 2, control your attitude. When you get pulled over, it can be frustrating. Maybe you were on your way to a party, and being late is gonna make all your friends judge you.
Sorry I'm late. You can start the party now.
Bro, that's so lame. You can go hang out with those guys.
Whatever the reason, it's easy to get upset. If you want your interaction with the officer to go smoothly, you need to have a good attitude. First of all, let the officer speak first. Once the officer has reached your window, he will ask for your license, registration, and proof of insurance. Carefully gather them and hand them to the officer. Gently, not with a chip on your shoulder. Stay calm and try your best to contain your emotions. And please, spare us the cringe and don't get defensive.
Do you realize you were going 75 in a 55?
Oh no, I'm sure that sign said 75.
You mean that one a mile back that clearly says 55?
Well, I'm dyslexic and there was bird poop on the sign.
Trying to convince the officer that you didn't do anything wrong is not going to go anywhere.
It's gotta be the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
The truth is, a lot of times officers will let you off with a warning. But if you're being a weasel, your odds of just getting a warning go down. Way down.
And I've heard some dumb things, son. Dumb things.
Just keep a cool head and remember the officer is there to protect the community, including you. If you're puzzled by why you were pulled over, it's okay to ask the officer. Just do it respectfully. And if you want to explain your side of it, sometimes that's okay too. The key is having the right attitude. If you think the officer might have made a mistake, that's okay. You don't have to blow up or convince him that he's wrong.
Look, I didn't do anything wrong. Trust me, you don't want this on your conscience.
Keep a good attitude, make your case respectfully, and if he's not going for it, just take the ticket. Then later, you can actually challenge the officer in a traffic court. It's really not that hard to do. If the officer gives you a ticket, do not argue or beg. It just makes you look pathetic and it's not going to change his mind.
It's hard raising myself. Groceries aren't cheap these days, and I have a massive appetite for cheesy puffs.
Do not be this person. Take ownership and be respectful, and the officer might let you off with a warning. If he does, thank him for his understanding. Let him know you appreciate the opportunity to correct your driving mistakes before having anything put on your driving record.
Number 3, compose yourself and remember safety. After the whole experience of getting pulled over, it can be a little rattling, especially if it's your first time. So before you pull back out into traffic, take a deep breath, make sure you're composed and ready to drive safely. Depending on where you were pulled over, it can sometimes be a little tricky pulling back out into traffic.
Look out! Look out!
Use your turn signal and make sure that your re-entry into traffic doesn't put your life or the lives of others at risk.
In conclusion, driving is a huge responsibility that we all must take seriously. Getting pulled over is never fun, but when we understand it's ultimately for our safety, it puts things in perspective. We can set the frustration aside, take a deep breath, listen to the officer, and apply the lessons learned to being a better and safer driver. So let's recap how to handle getting pulled over. Number 1, prioritize safety for you, the drivers around you, and the officer. Number 2, control your attitude. Handle the situation respectfully and take responsibility. And number 3, compose yourself and remember safety as you get back on the road.
Thank you for watching this how-to video for PragerU. I hope you learned something new. Check out our website, PragerUkids.com. I'm gonna leave and I will not get pulled over, but if I do, I'll know how to respond right.
My cup is upside down. I was holding it like this.
I have a massive appetite for cheesy puffs.
I understand. Cheesy puffs are quite delicious. You know, I thought about quitting my job, but I have a dependency on cheesy puffs.